Just another type of plastic, but it's one of the other types of cartridges here. These cartridges use polypropylene plastic. And so we had to come up with a new way of developing those print cartridges and making those with recycled plastic. Polypropylene, in the case of the polypropylene cartridges, we take shredded hanger material, apparel hangers, and that's what I was searching for. Oh, thank you. So just the kind of hangers like this that are in various retailers around the world are collected, sent to Laverne where they are shredded and turned into this type of material here. That's combined with the cartridge material that I've just walked you through, and that becomes the material that is the raw material for our recycled polypropylene cartridges.
Why hangers?
Why hangers? It's a great question, and Sheen again is going to talk a little bit about this, but we actually had to find some kind of other consumer product, some other post-consumer product that we could use in our print cartridges. And different types of plastics have very specific types of properties to them. And again, this is, I'm not the engineer and Shane is. But what's interesting is that we had to test something like 12 other different types of post-consumer materials before we found the right one that would create the right formulation for our print cartridges again. So that reformulation process takes place, and when that material, and in the case of toner cartridges, we're adding new plastic again to the recycled cartridge material, and then we're turning it into new cartridges again.
I just wanted to make one comment about the hangers. We also had to find something that needed to go back into a recycling waste stream. The hangers aren't just, they're done using them in the retail, they needed to have some way to recycle them. And so we provide that.
Thank you. All right, so let's see. Once they've been reformulated, then we're taking that material, that new raw material that we've created and through this process, and that's shipped to our manufacturing locations around the world, like here in Dublin, Ireland. And then, so what you're going to see tomorrow is that material that's coming from these different processes and being the process of taking this raw material from our Montreal facility, from our partner, and putting it into new original HP ink cartridges again. I've been talking a lot about plastic bottles and hangers, and I'd like to give you some of the details, some of the data about how much material we're diverting. In 2013, we helped use more than 1 million water bottles per day, diverting them from landfill and using them in our print cartridge process. And since the beginning of the program in 2005, we have consumed more than 2.5 billion plastic bottles in our processes. In addition, so far, and we're just getting started with our hanger program, we've consumed more than 1.1 million pounds of plastic hangers, polypropylene hangers. Now, let's pause for a minute because, of course, there's an obvious environmental benefit of using this material in our print cartridges. But there's also an economic benefit here. There's an economic argument for using recycled plastics in our materials. The Ellen MacArthur Foundation has published a paper recently called Towards the Circular Economy. And this paper states, this was published in August of 2013, this paper states that because of the increasing scarcity of our resources and because of the increasing cost of material extraction, natural resource extraction, it's increasingly important for companies to source materials from waste rather than sourcing them from extracting natural resources. and that helps companies create a hedge against future material prices. As Jean mentioned, we're not seeing that yet today. The cost of getting our cartridges back and putting them through this closed loop process does not make up for all of the cost of all that collection of materials, doesn't yet make up and help us against the cost of sourcing recycled plastics. We're doing it because it's the right thing to do. Another thing I wanted to mention is that when we're going through this process, and Jean was talking about it a little bit, we're actually upcycling these materials, taking material that's coming from the recycling infrastructure here. We're turning hangers into more valuable materials, more technical materials, instead of turning them into flower pots and park benches. Great efforts as well, but the process of upcycling those materials is increasing the value of them for our future. One final economic argument is that our recycling infrastructure cannot exist if we don't have a place to use those materials. Companies have to create a demand for recycled materials so that we can still have a municipal infrastructure in place. And so by a program that's using something like 2.5 billion water bottles, we're able to help support that infrastructure. We're making progress along a path. So I've been talking about hangers and bottles, and now what I'd like to, let's just look at the metrics around our cartridges. Since 1991, HP, Planet Partners, and customers have recycled more than 566 million print cartridges through our program. If I were to lay all of those print cartridges end to end, it would circle the Earth 2.3 times. And this is where I'm going to get to the question that was asked earlier. You might say, well, with all of the transportation of getting those cartridges back and taking the bottle materials and collecting all of that, organizing it into one place, shipping it around the world, is there really an environmental impact of using this recycled material in our print cartridges? Let me answer that. We commissioned a new life cycle assessment research that has just been completed. This is an update to an earlier study, and it's looking at our use of recycled PET in our print cartridges. A life cycle assessment is a model of the use of our materials, and in this case we were comparing the use of recycled plastics versus new plastics in our print cartridges. Everything from extraction of raw materials through the refining process to the creation of the plastics, and once they get to our print cartridges, in the case of new plastics, everything from all that transportation of those print cartridges, the hangers, the bottles, bottles, all of that transportation, all of the logistics, processing, all of that work to get to our facility in our manufacturing locations. What we find is that by using recycled plastics instead of new plastics in our print cartridges, we're able to reduce the carbon footprint of our plastics by 33% by using recycled instead of new print cartridges. And when someone tells me about carbon footprint data, I always need some sort of real tangible example because it's hard for me to picture what does that really mean. In this case, in 2013 alone, using our 2013 volumes, we are saving more than 777,000 gallons of gas, the equivalent of 777,000 gallons of gas, by using the recycled plastics in our print cartridges. It's the equivalent of taking 1,455 cars off the road for a year. And this is just looking at our 2013 volume of recycled PET plastic. In addition, we also looked at fossil fuel consumption. We're able to reduce our fossil fuel consumption by 54% by using recycled rather than new plastics in our print cartridges. And if you add that all up, it's about the equivalent of saving 42,000 barrels of oil in 2013. Now, one of the most surprising pieces of data that we got back was around water. I don't ordinarily associate water with plastics production. But in fact, it takes a lot of water to help with the cooling, the extraction, the electricity consumption, all of these various factors going through this long, complicated model. And what results is that by using recycled plastics, we're able to save a lot of that water consumption that takes place in the creation of new plastics. And so we're able to reduce water usage by 75% by using recycled PET in our print cartridges rather than new. That's 7 billion gallons of water saved in 2013. Another big number. And again, just for me, I need to break it down so I can think about what does that really mean. 7 billion gallons of water. I need to kind of have a visual of that. And that's enough water to supply 99 million American households for a day, or about 228 billion showers. So, sort of summarizing that life cycle assessment data that I've just shared with you, we've manufactured, just in manufacturing, original HP ink cartridges with recycled PET for 1 year in 2013. We're able to reduce our carbon footprint by 33%. We're able to reduce fossil fuel consumption by 54% and reduce water usage by 75% by using recycled plastics rather than new plastics. Recycled PET instead of new. Altogether, we've manufactured more than 2 billion ink and toner cartridges with recycled plastics since 2005. We've facilitated customer recycling of 566 million ink and toner cartridges since our program began in 1991. And through this program of using recycled materials in our print cartridges, in our ink cartridges, we've used 2.5 billion plastic bottles and 1.1 million pounds of recycled hangers. In summary, our original HP print cartridge closed-loop process is a great example of living progress because we are sourcing material from waste, we are improving resilience to raw material prices, and we're providing convenient recycling for our customers. I'd be glad to take some questions before I turn it over to Shane. Yes?
What are the largest sources of, where do the cartridges come back through? Is there, can you rank like how they get to you? Like I mentioned earlier, Staples is one source of them, but how, what are the other, is it mostly those office chains?
Yeah, we really don't break down how we get our cartridges back, but we rely on customers to use the most convenient method for them. And tomorrow,
mail them back?
Yes, and tomorrow we'll be going through that in detail. This box, for example, is one of our return and collection boxes that's used in Europe, but we'll be breaking that down. It differs somewhat by region in terms of what types of services we offer for which, just depending upon availability and ease of use. We're always trying to make sure that our print cartridge recycling program is convenient. So if you could hold that till tomorrow, I think you'll get a better answer than trying to give all the details now for the broad group. Yes?
You've got the PET and the polypropylene taken care of. Do you have other kinds of plastics you're still working on that need to be recycled?
Yeah, that's a great question. The question was, you've got PET and polypropylene that you're using recycled plastics in those print cartridges. Do you have other plastics? And the answer is that yes, for the last 25% of our print cartridges, our ink cartridges, we're working on either new plastics development or new cartridge body development. So with the new and different designs of each different print cartridge, we need to get Shane to work to develop the right way of taking that material and putting it into the new cartridges again. And when Shane talks, I think you'll really get a sense of all of the attention it takes, the details involved in creating print cartridges with recycled content again. And then as well in the tour tomorrow. And then one more final thought is that as we're developing print cartridges with recycled content, we're of course always making sure that our cartridges are equal in quality to the cartridges that were created in the past with new plastics. And so we're always taking extra time to make sure that we're providing superior print quality and reliability.
How many?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Okay. How many of the ink cartridges that you produce come back to the recycle processes?
Yeah.
And what are your goals about this percentage?
Yeah. So for our ink, first of all, Jean and Bruno shared the Living Progress report where we provide those statistics every year. So far, we've recycled 566 million ink and toner cartridges through our program.
And how it compares to the production that you have?
Oh, we don't provide information about our recycling rates, because then people could start figuring out what our sales numbers are exactly. We don't release that.
And I have another little question about your cartridge includes some electronics inside, and there are other cartridges from another manufacturers that doesn't have that kind of electronic inside, and the cartridges are mainly tanks, ink tanks. It's easy for them to recycle the materials than you. Is the technology that you use in your ink cartridge make more difficult to recycle or not?
Oh, okay.
What do you think about it?
Yeah, so first of all, yes, our print cartridges are designed to be used specifically with our printers and the paper, all designed together in one integrated system. And it's only by using all of those elements that we can guarantee the best quality and reliability that our customers expect. So I can't really speak for other manufacturers, but in our case, we're working hard to make sure that our recycled content, our products with recycled content, deliver that same quality and reliability.
If I may follow up to that, do you also recycle the electronics that provide authenticity verification and so on?
Yes, we are. So when we take a cartridge back, nothing goes to landfill. So as I described that process of taking the plastics from those cartridges and putting it into new cartridges again, we also are recycling all of the other elements. So metals go into a metal recycling system. Inks, I think someone was asking about earlier, go through energy recovery. And all of those different parts and pieces are recycled responsibly. The video that you're going to see tomorrow will give you the detail about exactly, you can see it for yourself to kind of bring it to life. Yes?
Just wondered if there's any programs about refilling and reusing cartridges rather than taking them back and recycling, which also uses much more energy.
Yeah, HP never refills or reuses cartridges because we find that we can never deliver the same quality and reliability that customers expect. Tomorrow, when we break into our groups, we can also share with you specifics about some of the issues we see around wasted pages generated from remanufactured cartridges. And net, when accounting for that use phase of products, we find that there's actually an environmental advantage to use original HP cartridges and not to refill or reuse. Yes?
75% of your ink cartridges are now from recycled content.
Yes.
What was the figure before?
Thank you. Prior to this announcement, we were around 50% of our print cartridges contained recycled content. And today, we're at 75% of our ink cartridges contain recycled content.
So, do you have a goal for 100%?
We have not created a specific goal, but of course, there's teams like Shane and other people throughout the system who would love to see something like that take place.
Two things, just to be sure I understand properly. So 75% of the cartridge that you sell will contain recycled plastic?
Oh, good question.
Just
yeah. There's a clarifying question about the 75%, and thank you for checking this. The 75% of our ink cartridges is by volume. By all of our sales volume, 75% of those cartridges contain recycled content, and 24% of our toner cartridges. On an individual print cartridge basis, for ink cartridges, approximately 50 to 70% of the print cartridge contains recycled content. And it varies depending upon the cartridge type. So black cartridges might have one specific amount of recycled content and color have another. And for a list of our for a list of print cartridges, ink or toner, that contain recycled content, you can go to www.hp.com/go/recycled content, and you'll see it all there. For our toner cartridges, I mentioned 24% of our total volume of cartridges contain recycled plastic. And again, the list is available at that same URL. But on an individual cartridge by cartridge basis, approximately 10 to 20% of each cartridge contains recycled content of those cartridges. And you'll see the exact amount per SKU on that list.
Two more questions. The first, I'm not sure if you will be able to answer, but is the reason why we're at 75 and not 100, is it because economics reason or because lack of enough material reason?
Yeah. Why? The question is, why are we only at 75% and not at 100%, or why not yet? And the answer is, first of all, there's different types of plastics in some of our other print cartridges, and so we need to find ways to develop that formulation. It's a very technical process. It takes years to figure out the right process.
So some kind of cartridges would be 0% because that one is not yet.
Right.
Okay.
So some of our cartridges, of that 25% of our ink cartridges, contain zero recycled plastic because we just haven't gotten there.
Okay.
The other thing is, again, still focusing on why only 75 and not 100% of our ink cartridges is because we have different cartridge designs. The look and feel of this cartridge is very different than some of the shape and the body of the other cartridges. And so these parts all have to be working together. It's all a specific design and manufacturing process. I think you'll see some of that tomorrow, and Shane's going to touch on some of the challenges that it took to get to this point for this particular cartridge design. And so what's interesting, though, is because this is from recycled polypropylene, we have other cartridges that contain polypropylene that we can start focusing on next, because we have already figured out how to make recycled polypropylene. It's just a matter of adjusting it for the cartridge design.
And one last
yes.
question. When you buy, do you have the number, like when you buy a recycled cartridge, do you know how many you could make? Like how many, the recycled can I tell the plastic in that one probably was in like 7 cartridges before.
Right. We're not tracing the material, we're not tracking that, but some estimates have said that we might be using that somewhere could be many times, but some estimates have been somewhere around 5 to 7 different times.
Okay.
It's interesting because we've only just introduced and fully commercially rolled the creation of these cartridges with recycled polypropylene, but we've already gotten some back to our recycling centers. And so now we have the opportunity to take these cartridges and take the plastics from here and turn them into new original HP ink cartridges again.
Excuse me, how long time of life have this business? Don't see other tendencies?
How long have we had the closed loop process?
No, the business of the cartridge.
Oh, well, gosh, I'm not sure when our printing business began. 1984? 1984, not 1884, 1984. I've been around Dublin too long with all these ancient history.
But don't change the tendencies. For example, many people don't use more the impression or print. What is the long time of life in this business?
Yeah, well, I think Bruno touched on this a little bit. The question is around, what is the lifetime of print, or how long are we going to continue to print? And, when I first got into this business, people were talking about, printing is going to go out of fashion and there's not going to be any printing again. But in fact, we see growth in certain areas of the markets. And so there's always going to be the case where someone wants to print a photo and share it with their friends, certain documents that are legally required to be printed out. So even though we're able to digitize and send some of our processes, there's always going to be, we believe there's always going to be other instances where our customers want to print. And when they do, they're going to want the highest print quality.
Thank you.
Yes?
In terms of closing the loop, how much, obviously you're using plastic bottles and hangers to add into the mix.
Yes.
But what sort of ratio is it your own cartridge plastic being mixed with other plastics that you're probably sourcing outside of the supply chain?
Yeah, how much closed loop content? We're not breaking that down right now because sometimes the material mix has to change over time given shipping concerns and the like. But we're working to make sure that we're spreading that recycled content, closed loop recycled content consistently across our print cartridges. Yes?
Are you doing any work with the remaining components of the cartridge? There's a little chunk of foam in there, which I believe along with the ink gets incinerated at the moment. Is there anything you can do with those components to make them either recyclable or manufacturable from recycled content?
Yes, we're, and again, this is something that Shane's going to get into a little bit. The question is about, what about the other materials? What are we doing? So for the metals, which is another smaller but relatively important factor in the ink cartridges, those are readily recycled through the metals market, flowing on an endless technical loop. In the cases of the other materials, we've got exciting exploration going on to think about how we can make use of those materials. But yes, today, mostly through waste to energy is how we treat those materials. Yes?
Yes. And besides recycling, does HP ever thought about using biodegradable material?
Oh, yes. It's interesting. The question is about biodegradable materials. And we have looked we've explored briefly about using bio-based plastics and the like. And back in my office in Boise, Idaho, we have a printer, a sample printer that was built using PLA, which is a corn-based plastic. And what we found is that by using that corn-based plastic, and shipping the printer through different locations, we found that they were very brittle and that they broke in shipment. So we're no longer, we didn't take that project further. We were challenged by those engineering constraints, but we have looked at it in the past. All right, now, let's see. I'll take 2 more questions if there are any. Great. Ah, yes. 2 more.
How much of the knowledge you've gained from all of these processes is being implemented as well for, say, like toner cartridges and so on?
Yeah. We are taking, we're always, so we've used recycled plastic in our printers as well. And one of the requirements in EP is to put recycled content into your products. And so we're looking at that. We've taken lessons from our closed loop process and given it to our printing group, and vice versa, printing into our closed loop ink cartridge and toner cartridge program. In the case of our toner cartridge program, the plastics there are even more specific and specialized because a toner cartridge is in a heated environment. And so we don't yet use other plastics other than toner cartridges. We don't use other post-consumer plastics in our toner cartridges other than our own HP toner cartridges. All right, and then the final question over here.
Yeah, so you mentioned the resource savings, energy, waste, and
Yes.
water. Could you put a cost figure on that?
Yeah. Now, the cost savings that the savings that I described in terms of water and the like, were all in comparing the different types of plastic that we could source into our cartridges. We were specifically comparing recycled PET plastic and new PET plastic. And so we're not in the business of producing either one of those plastics, and we're not realizing the economic benefit of using of that carbon footprint savings, for example. But we are understanding that through this circular economy that has just, that concept is relatively new to us, that perhaps in the future there's an economic benefit for our society.
Because of the price of sourcing will go up, or because of your process will be more efficient, or because of both?
According to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, they are projecting that the cost of producing materials based on natural resource extraction is going to continue to increase. Yes. All right, let's see. Now what I'd like to do is show you one video of the Montreal process. This is the specific formula